Usually before the trailer for a new episode drops, we get this so-called warm-up with a bunch of different teasers that give us a little peek at the main plot of the upcoming episode. And that's exactly why the trailer release for episode 6 was such a surprise, because we basically didn't get any of that. But Glitch kept showing us all these updates tied to the Digital Circus Awards, and if we put all that together, it's pretty fair to assume that the TADC Awards were those so-called teasers. Sure, we didn't really learn anything big or useful, but the important thing here is the Caine factor, who starting from episode 3, slowly started revealing his true self, and over time it just kept getting worse. And even though a lot of folks didn't really notice it, in episode 5, Caine actually showed his real nature in these scenes.
Cash piano, I'll tear you to pieces!
Are you hearing this, Bubble? The Toy Box character wants us to leave the other intelligent AIs to run for a prolonged period of time.
We saw how he straight up started going off on the others while still somehow cracking jokes at their expense. And circling back to those awards, it's clear that between episodes 5 and 6, Caine really lost it. He's literally obsessed with being the top dog in the Digital Circus, and he's obviously not accepting any other contender for that spot. And if we remember his interview,
"Oh, how they love my adventures, and they also love me for their loving my adventures. They're always jumping around, chirping, saying, 'Oh, feed us more adventures, Caine! Our crops are so empty! We need your half-digested, regurgitated goodness, or so help me, I'll jump out of this nest and kill myself!'"
we hear just how highly he thinks of himself and his adventures. I'm more than sure this topic's gonna pop up in the new episode, and the only question is what form it's gonna take. I'm betting it's gonna be in that very first private room scene, right before we jump into a really wild adventure. Whether Caine came up with it himself or it was Jax's idea is still a mystery, but trust me, starting with episode 6, Caine's gonna play a way bigger role than you think. Now let's move on to another insanely intriguing detail tied to our admin. Remember that gun they showed us at San Diego Comic-Con? If we look at the rest of the weapons, they're clearly different from the one Caine owns, and I'm seriously curious why that weapon ended up with Jax. There have been some old theories floating around that the rabbit's basically the admin's puppet, but let's wait till episode 6 to find out the real reason. But the fact that this gun's got Caine and Abel engraved on it, and their signature mark drawn right there hints that one of the biggest mysteries of the Digital Circus might finally start clearing up in episode 6. And still I think Jax might know something about it, especially since the episode's mostly centered on him. But it's important to remember that Pomni and Regatha are also going to play a pretty big part in this wild episode, and I feel like in that context it's worth bringing up an old theory that's recently been backed up by some facts. Not only does it now seem totally possible, but if it's true, it's going to completely change how we see the Digital Circus. And yeah, I'm talking about Jax and Regatha, and their connection in the real world. Regatha said she used to live on a big farm, while Jax is scared of corn because it reminds him of a farm. You could call that a coincidence, sure, but then why did Jax react so genuinely to Regatha's story about her real life? It felt like he was remembering not just his own past, but hers too. But there's one part of her monologue that most people missed, and it's crazy important. I'm talking about Regatha's mom, who's very likely also Jax's mom. From what we learned, she was super strict and didn't really care much about how her kids felt. That alone could explain a lot about how both Regatha and Jax act. Think back to episode 5, it's immediately obvious how much Regatha gets thrown off by anything that doesn't fit the rules.
What the freak?
Huh? Check this out. You're out, dumb. Damn it.
It's pretty clear that their mom's harsh parenting messed Regatha up in a big way. She turned into someone who's way too obedient, constantly puts insane pressure on herself, and worst of all, she's always trying to find something positive even when there's literally nothing good there at all. And that's exactly what annoys Jax, because even though they grew up in the same house, he sees all of this in a completely different way. Remember how I kept saying that the evil versions of the characters are like mirrors of their real emotions? Evil Jax is this super anxious, insecure guy, and honestly that's probably who he really is. Deep down he just hides it behind all the sarcasm and attitude. Sure, you could say he was just trying to act cool like school's lame, and guys like him don't need it. But what if the truth is, he didn't want to take part, because in real life, he was actually a total loser at school, and being in that kind of environment just makes him feel super uncomfortable. Just realized I never actually explained why Jax is scared of corn. We don't know the full truth yet, but judging by how intense his reaction was, this plant clearly ties to some seriously traumatic experience. So maybe his mom used corn as some twisted form of punishment, like beating him with cobs or forcing him to eat a crazy amount of them whenever he disobeyed. And at this point, we can pretty confidently say Jax and Regatha are actual siblings, but that's just the beginning. Just think back to how they act around each other throughout episode 5.
Does she think hanging out with Zubul is gonna magically fix that? Maybe she just doesn't want to hang out with someone who's mean to her all the time.
She likes when I'm mean to her, though. Hey, I ain't forcing anything on you.
And then you just act like you never do anything wrong and everybody loves you, when in reality you just fuck everything up for everyone else!
It's pretty clear that Ragatha reacts to Jax way differently than she does to anyone else, and it makes sense. They grew up in the same environment, had the same strict upbringing, but while Jax broke out of that box and turned all that childhood trauma into harsh, even cruel behavior, Raggy stayed stuck inside her own mental cage. She never moved past those old patterns, so seeing Jax act out and be so different totally throws her off. That's why we see her either snapping at him or showing these weirdly intense emotions when it comes to Jax.
Not anymore. Oh, wait, no. I'm sorry. I wasn't talking about that. That wasn't meant to be.
No apologies for me? This is so sad.
I'm sorry, Jax, for bringing up that thing earlier.
We also know Ragatha worked in real estate, and I mentioned before that characters get into the digital circus through some abandoned building that probably houses servers, computers, and headsets acting as gateways. Since real estate agents sometimes check out old, abandoned places for reconstruction and resale, Ragatha could have found this spot and told Jax about it, and maybe he suggested they see what happens if they jump into the game. If that sounds weird, just remember Kinger and his wife, who also ended up in the digital circus together. Let's also remember Jax's friend, who's no longer in the digital circus. That means after they got trapped in this cursed game, Jax managed to find a friend while Ragatha basically wandered alone most of the time. Sure, she might have talked to someone here and there, but deep down, she was lonely. And it's pretty likely she played a part in Ribbit turning into an abstracted monster. They both ended up in the circus, and Jax was basically the only close person Ragatha had, but he actually ditched her for his new friend. And if you think back to that scene...
Remember when you got high at McDonald's and told Gangle to kill herself? No, that was funny.
What? I did not say that. I think. No.
It's clear right away Raggy never said anything like that. Sure, she told Gangle some pretty harsh stuff, but nothing like that. So it's very likely those words were meant for Ribbit, and after that, he probably started doubting himself and all that, which eventually led to him turning into a monster. Maybe that's why we see tears in her eyes when she apologized to Jax for bringing up Ribbit. So, if we sum up episode 5 through the lens of Jax and Ragatha being siblings, I'm more than sure that everything about how they interact and their backstories in the real world is basically screaming it. But like I said before, this isn't just something new. There were plenty of hints dropped in earlier episodes too. Like, remember that scene from episode 3?
You know how men are. Always having the silliest priorities.
Don't I know it?
Just pay attention to how warmly Ragatha says those words. Despite everything that's happened between them in past episodes and probably even in real life, she still clearly cares about Jax. No matter what, she tries to support him and kinda guide her younger brother through life, like in this moment right here.
I'm so unbelievably disappointed right now.
Well, maybe there will be blood, death, and violence in the next adventure.
Or like when she opened up under the effect of that stupid sauce. As always, I'm waiting to hear what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you soon.